Welcome to the Attention Deficit Disorder Expert Podcast Series by Attitude Magazine.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Susan Coffin for Attitude Magazine. I'm very happy to introduce Sandy Maynard. Sandy is a longtime coach based in Washington, D.C. She's one of the original founders of the coaching movement. And she has been a supporter and a writer for Attitude Magazine since its inception 12 years ago. And we are very grateful for her support. So, Sandy, I thought I would pose to you first a question that came in earlier today from someone who said the following. I'm a mother with ADHD myself with two kids, one with ADHD and autism and one with ADHD and anxiety disorder, and I cannot keep myself organized. I can't pay the bills, keep paperwork straight for medical bills, keep track of all the paperwork for my son's college applications. What do you suggest to keep track of paperwork? I need a simple system that works for people with ADHD. Any ideas?
Okay, great. Well, first of all, Attitude Magazine has helped thousands and thousands of individuals with ADHD live happier and healthier lives, so I'm really honored to be on here to answer your questions. Let's start with you are the CEO of your household, and I don't know of any CEO who doesn't have their own office. Depending on how much space you have in your home, it may be a small office or it may be a large office. I'm not there to visually see what you have, but you do need a place carved out to be able to carry out your duties in running your home. And oftentimes when I help clients organizing, the office is the place to start. You need a desk, you need a file cabinet, you need some bookshelves, and you need a place for everything and some help probably putting everything in its place. And there is an association out there called the National Association of Professional Organizers. If you go to that site to see where there are organizers located near you, be sure to make sure that they're ADD-friendly organizers. I've had clients come to me almost in tears saying, I've spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on professional organizing. They come in, they set up a system, they leave, and 2 weeks later it's back to the way it was. And I think that's because the organizer doesn't stop to ask the questions that are needed to be asked to make the systems that are set up and put in place user-friendly for you. So give some thought to what's really important with the paperwork that you're handling and managing, and how you best are able to get it organized. Some people like the A to Z, some people like color coding. I prefer, when it comes to organizing paperwork for your home, simple is always best. Start with as few categories as you can. That might be health care, taxes, kids' school, et cetera, et cetera. But minimize the number of categories that you start with to get organized with your paperwork. If one category is really building up and you've got a lot in it, then you can go back and do round 2 of organizing, and that's subcategorizing the paperwork. What I hear from a lot of individuals is if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. And that's true for many of us. But what happens with that is that we leave it out so we won't forget about it, and then we've created yet another pile that we become clutter blind to. And if you think about it, many of us with a clutter problem are clutter blind. We make these piles and we leave them out so we don't forget. And then as time goes on and the piles accumulate, we ignore them and we become blind to them. If you think about it, I know when I moved to D.C., it was the first large city I move to, and I couldn't sleep at night because I heard ambulances and all kinds of noises that I wasn't used to hearing. And, and it took a couple weeks. I couldn't sleep, but it took a couple weeks for me to tune it out, and then I could sleep just fine. So if you're tuning out your clutter, put on the brakes and start those organization projects so you know what you have and can find a place for it. If we're really organizationally challenged, like many of us are, we'll need some help with that. And if you can't afford an organizer to work with you, get a best friend. Say, you're so organized. I'll babysit your kids if you can spare a few hours and come over and help me organize my office. One of the things that we often miss in the organization project of any home office is purging. And purging is the thing that needs to be done first and done well. The more paper we keep, the more we have to manage. So instead of when you're going through a pile of paper and saying, oh, what can I use this for? Oh, I better keep this. I can use it for this, this, and this. That's the wrong question to ask yourself. The question you need to ask yourself is, how can I do without this? It may be very important information, but you could save just the website instead of the information itself that you printed out. So purging is an important part. And usually the first round of organizing, they'll be, yes, this is a definite, I'm keeping it. Maybe I better keep this. And then the group that gets tossed. Yeah, this is old, I don't need it anymore, I can toss it. That middle category, that I better keep it, is the category that can bite us in the butt. It's like a closet. File cabinets are like a closet. They need to be gone through every spring and every fall. And if you haven't worn it in a year, you get rid of it. And I think with much of the information that we keep, the same is true. If we haven't used it or gone to it in a year, we can probably get rid of it. Or we can find a way to get it back if we need it instead of holding on to it and keeping it. So I hope that's been a helpful answer.
Thanks, Sandy. I guess one of the questions that a number of people have posted is, even if they're able to get themselves to tackle organizing, which is very hard to do, so how do you do that, I guess? What's the strategy for going through all that paper that's piled up? The second thing is, how do you maintain that system once you have, if you've actually made the Herculean effort to organize the paper in your house? I mean, how do you maintain that? What are strategies, motivation, and deadlines, or what do you suggest?
Well, getting started is always the hardest part, and I would pick the area that to work on that would. Like when things are chaotic and, oh, man, I got to organize my life. Well, a life is a pretty big thing. So where do you start, And with an office, it's like, oh, I've got to organize my office. It's a pretty big thing. Where do you start? I ask my clients to ask themselves, what area, if I organized first, would make the biggest difference in how I'm able to perform, to get things done, to move forward. With a lot of people, that's email. Choosing an email system that's comfortable for you to use. Once again, my suggestion is always simple as best. If you've got too many bells and whistles and categories and functions, it could be very time-consuming to maintain. So something like, a little mailbox on the side of your email program that says, keeping just in case. Like, I'm not sure I'm going to need this email, but I don't want to get rid of it, so I put it in that keeping just in case. It does narrow it down and clean out your inbox a little and make it more manageable. The second piece of it is maintaining any system that you get organized. So I'm a I'm a firm believer in that. 15 minutes a day of organizing for everybody with ADD, and that could be, okay, 15 minutes a day, I'm going to put things back where they belong. I'm going to hang up coats and jackets. I'm going to, pick up, trash that's on the coffee table and put it in the trash can. And if I don't have a trash can in every room, I'm going to go out today and use my little organizing time to pick up a trash can or get one the next time I'm at the supermarket or out and about. What happens when we do an organization project 15 minutes a day, every day, is, we get to the point where we realize, I'm always grabbing the coat off the dining room chair and walking over to the closet to hang it up. And on an unconscious level, we begin to hang up our jacket when we come in the house. Rather than getting distracted, which is why we didn't hang up the jacket. We got distracted, the phone was ringing or whatever. Or we were thinking about what to have for dinner, so we walk right to the refrigerator to see what we've got to have for dinner. What happens on an unconscious level when we're doing these organization projects every day is that when we're constantly picking up dishes and bringing them into the kitchen or hanging up jackets or, putting something back where it belongs, we begin to put it back where it belongs or throw it out when it needs to be thrown out right then and there in the moment, so that we're breaking that old pattern and behavior of not putting things back. And it helps us with the mindset of, I'm coming home. I need to, plug in my cell phone to make sure it's charged for the evening. I recommend launch pads for transitioning, coming home, and leaving the house. In other words, a launch pad would have your cell phone, your wallet, your keys, your briefcase, maybe a little basket of things that you put in your purse but don't always want in your purse, to pick things out of the basket to put in your purse, and then when you get home, you look through your purse and say, oh, this goes back in the basket. I probably won't need it next time I go out. So doing the 15 minutes of organizing every day can force us into other new habits and patterns and behaviors that will keep the system like it's supposed to be.
Sandy, in your experience, people who succeed at doing 15 minutes a day, do they do it at the same time? I mean, one of the things that numerous people have mentioned, and I know from my own experiences can be a problem, is you start out strong with an idea or a routine or a strategy, 15 minutes a day, whatever, and then after a few days, it's very difficult to maintain that strategy. So what's your advice on how to...
Consistency with anything is so hard for us with ADHD. And what I think what happens is we say, I'm going to do this every day at the same time. And so we do it every day at the same time because we need to. We need new habits and patterns and behaviors, because our old ones are biting us in the butt. And so we do it consistently, and things start to run a little smoother, and so we get lax in doing them. And if we can remember, the motivation of the good results that we got from doing it consistently, and keep that in the forefront. In other words, playing the movie forward. One simple thing that, I often recommend to clients is, when a new person calls them on your smartphone and you talk with them, and then you hang up, to add that as a new contact right away. Anything that takes a minute or less, or maybe even 2 minutes or less, that's an organizational thing that'll help you in the future. Put on the brakes, stop, and do it right then and there. I mean, 2 minutes of adding a contact to your phone can save a lot of time later when you go, oh, what was that person's name? When did they call me? Where's their number? If you add it right away with a little note, I do recommend smartphones now for people with ADD because they have so many functions on them that help us with our memory. if I have a potential new client who calls me about her 14-year-old son who has a messy room, I put down 14-year-old son, messy room. And I don't need to remember that client's name. I can just search for 14-year-old son, messy room, and boop, she pops up. So I can call her back and say, hi, how you doing? Have you made a decision yet on coaching? Are there any other questions I can answer for you? And so those little 2-minute habits give us great results. And when we stop and, when that little nagging feeling comes in like, oh, I'll add the telephone number later, I'll write it down later, we got to play the movie forward and think about how much time it's going to take later to find it when we've forgotten the person's name or didn't write it down. One app that a lot of my clients just love is called Evernote for smartphones. It's a to-do list and reminder system that has a lot of different functions on it. You pick and choose the functions you want, and it's been a godsend for a lot of my clients.
Evernote, that's a good recommendation.
Yeah, very popular, very well used.
So in terms of getting motivated and starting this organization system, you'd say start small with 15 minutes a day and or hire an organizer to help get you focused and on track. One of the questions that's been posted relates to this, again, organizing paper. Once it's inside a file cabinet, it just doesn't work. If you can't see it, it's as if it's not there. And yet, putting them in paper in piles, is pretty catastrophic. It's something most of us grapple with. Do you have any recommendations on paper management systems that you've actually seen work well for ADD clients? Sometimes those clear plastic bins where you can see what's in them work well. And if you want to organize your paperwork according to projects, I call them project bins. Everything, you're remodeling your kitchen. So everything that's related to, the contractor and the plumber and the electrician and maybe the cabinets you looked at, all that information you put in there, maybe even carpet samples or tile samples you put in there, and that's your kitchen project bin. And if it's something that, if you don't have a lot of stuff, you can actually pick it up or bring it with you when you go to Home Depot, But if it's a big bin, that you probably have to pick out what you need from the bin before you go to Home Depot to match it up with something else that you might be looking for. But project bins work very well for all kinds of projects. I have attorneys who have a bookshelf behind their desk with project bins on them. In other words, each bin is a particular client or a particular case they're working on, so that their desk is not all cluttered with a mixture of different client paperwork. And when they're ready to work on a certain case or a certain client, they pull out their bin, they spread out their papers, they work on it, they make their telephone calls, and then they scoop it back up and put it in the bin. And some of them find it very useful to make a note on a colored sheet of paper where they left off in the project, like a little master tick-off list of things to do. Cross it out and leave yourself a note. This is where I left off. I haven't called so-and-so yet, so you write so-and-so's name with a little box by it to check it off, rather than just scooping it up and putting it away. Scooping it up, putting a note where you left off, and then putting it away. And it is out of sight, it is out of mind, because you're not working on that client anymore. You're ready to work on the next project. So you pull out that project in, spread it out, take out what you need, work on it, and you're not distracted by the previous client because he's on the bookshelf behind you. Cluttered desks are the worst distraction ever. People say, Sandy, you don't have ADD, your desk is so organized. And I say to my clients that you don't know what I'm like when my desk is disorganized. It exacerbates my own ADD times a bazillion. So I have to have a clean desk. And some clients actually have a little extra table by their desk with extra paperwork and stuff on it. And they take stuff off the desk and put it on their immediate working area.
I like L-shaped desks for that reason, too. One side of the L is what you're currently working on, and the other side of the L is stuff that you're not currently working on, so you can drag the stuff back and forth so that you only have in front of you what you're supposed to be paying attention to. Because the other stuff there, and no matter how hard we try sometimes, will distract us and we're off and running and we never finish what we started.
The bins are a great idea. Here's another question. I'm scrolling through the questions people have posted, and this question has come up a lot. Real difficulty paying bills and following up, especially on medical insurance forms. Just both the mental obstacle of tackling that and then a system that actually works. That's a huge one for lots of people.
Paying bills, my most successful clients have put them online, automatic deductions. There's always going to be the doctor's bill or whatever that comes that you can't pay online. You've got to sit down and write the check for and mail it off. But online bill paying is the way to go for many of my clients to simplify that. I think, some clients will really get a handle on their mail. In other words, they empty their mailbox every day and they have a system. This newsletter goes here. This coupon goes in my coupon bucket here. Ooh, this is a possible thing coming up this in a couple weekends that I might want to go to. It's a social thing, so they'll put it in their little pile for social events coming up, or their little folder, or their little, some of those plexiglass things that you can see through that you hang on the wall are good for little items that come in the mail like that, they're maybes. I always say when you do your mail and there's something that's coming up in the future, the first thing you do is you check your calendar to see if you're open, because if you're going to grandma's that weekend, you don't need to save the piece of paper, obviously, but if it's something you think you might want to attend or go to, then have a place for it and put it in that place, rather than once again, I got to leave this out to remind myself about it. If you do define a place for everything that comes in the mail, and you know where to go to get it when you need it. A good example would be a synagogue or a church bulletin you like to read to find out what's going on in your church, but you rarely have time to read it. If you have a place where it goes, you've got, you're sitting down watching TV and you want to read something during commercials, you can hop up and go to the office and grab a couple newsletters and maybe read them during the commercial, rather than leaving them out on the coffee table, or leaving them out on a kitchen counter to read. You've got a place to go. And if you find that you never go to that place to get it to read it, stop saving it. You don't have time to read it. You're saving more than what you have time to read. The paying bills, if you don't like to do them online, I would pick 2 dates, usually like the 1st and the 15th of the month. If you pick those 2 dates to pay your bills, always, part of the collecting the mail and processing the mail is to separate the bills from everything else. They're the most important. And by bills, I mean bills. I don't mean contributions to, we all know who we want to vote for, and we get requests for donations. Put those in a separate pile. Or, magazine subscriptions. We don't know if we want to get National Geographic or this magazine or that magazine. Have a separate place for that. Just have your bills together that need to be paid. And then, set yourself a reminder on your Outlook or your iPhone that it's bill paying day on the 1st and the 15th of every month. And you shouldn't have any late fees from that if you do it like that. If you don't, some people do like to get a handle on their mail, and that's part of sorting the mail. Their mail is not sorted and done until they've paid the bill, and they pay it as it comes in on that day that it comes in. Some of us are depending on what your account is like and when your check is deposited and stuff, you might not want to do it that day. I know my income fluctuates, but usually I'm pretty assured that, I've got the money to pay the bill when it comes in, and I haven't transferred any money. So decide which way you want to do it, and then fine-tune it accordingly. But online bill paying is great.
But the key really is...
Yeah, it is.
The key to what you're saying is actually, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it seems to me that the issue really is, I know I've got many systems, but to actually pay the bills the same day every month is very difficult to say.
It is. And so if you've got it, if you've got it on your calendar and you know it's the 1st and the 15th, and somebody says, hey, let's go out to lunch on such and such a day, and you look at your calendar before you say, yeah, let's go out to lunch, and you see it's the 1st or the 15th, you can say, how about, Friday instead of Thursday? When we have no structure and things are willy-nilly, they continue to be willy-nilly, and it's a difficult thing to get structure. I say, on weekends, choose a fun day, Saturday or Sunday. Choose an errand day, Saturday or Sunday. And, your errand day is your dry cleaning, your groceries, and your stuff like that. And then if somebody says, hey, let's go golfing Saturday, you can say, how about Sunday? People who do have structure and routine, that's what they say. They say, can't do it on Saturday. Got to get my groceries and whatnot. And it's easy for us to impulsively make that decision to do something more fun on a Saturday rather than get groceries that day. It might be that, we say to ourselves, Monday is, I can always do a Monday after work. And then, Monday after work, we might not feel like it. Then we run on a milk and bread, and we got to run to the store, and we eat late. We eat dinner late, and then the kids get to bed late, and then it's hard to get them up in the morning. And it is a vicious cycle. So it is valuing the structure of doing it on the day you said you were going to do it on. And, life happens. That day you might get a flat tire and you have to do it on the 2nd or the 3rd instead of the 1st, and that's okay. Don't beat yourself up for it, but play the movie forward in terms of what you're saying to yourself when it's the 1st, and it's time to sit down and do your bills. And a part of it is hating doing it. And that's something where we need to make a list of what's really important and valuable to us. What's important? My family's financial security is important to me. I want to be able to not have all these late fees. I want to use my money wisely. I want to know how much I have to spend on what, so I can manage it more effectively and better. I know I've put a couple different times during my life, I've put myself on these really strict budgets that backfired miserably because they were too strict. That little oppositional defiant kid came up in me, and flexibility is key. So, if it gets done on the 2nd or the 3rd, not the 1st, that's okay. But aim for the 1st, and tell yourself the reasons why it needs to be done that are important reasons for you. Some people don't care if they pay their bills late because the late fee is no big deal. It's $20, whatever, who cares? And that's fine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you're sick and tired of having late fees and thinking, oh my God, how much money have I spent on late fees lately? Then run that thought through your mind as that being a very important way to be more financially secure, is to avoid late fees and get a better credit rating because they're paid on time. Whatever your reasons are for wanting to do it, make a list of those reasons. Sometimes when it's hard to get motivated around a particular goal, I ask clients to list the top 10 reasons they want to do this. Like, why do you want to be to work on time? Why do you want to pay your bills on time? Why do you want an organized office? List your 10 top reasons. I've had clients write them out and read them. Read them to yourself. When you start to procrastinate paying your bills, read that list of 10 top reasons. It might be the one thing that'll say, okay, sharpen my pencil and sit down and find my bills and do it, because it is important. Some people have put their 10 top reasons in a frame and set it right on their desk, right there in front of their face. Visual reminders can be very powerful. It could be a picture of something that's a financial goal for you, like, oh, I'd love to buy a sailboat, but, I can never get ahead. I can never save. And if you list the 10 top reasons you want to buy that sailboat and have a picture of a sailboat on your desk, that just might be the thing that helps get you motivated to do the task that, it's so easy to procrastinate and so easy to not do because it's just one of those.
So in terms of motivation, I think the two things I've heard, both of which sounded really helpful, was to have a regular scheduled date for a task, an unpleasant task or a task that you avoid or whatever, and also to articulate why you want to do that and make a visual reminder of that somewhere. Is that?
Yeah. And pat yourself on the back when you do it.
Okay.
We often, with ADD, minimize our accomplishments. I'll work with a client who says, Sandy, I got to work with you. If I don't start getting to work on time, I'm going to get fired. And the first week they'll go, man, I made it to work on Monday, but Tuesday I was a little late. I was a little later Wednesday. Thursday I made it. And Friday I was like really late. And it's like, look at the days that you got there on time and pat yourself on the back for it. Things don't often change overnight. It's a process. Really like, woohoo, way, yay, 1 out of 5 is great compared to 0 out of 5. Go for it. Aim for 2 out of 5. Keep going. Cheerlead yourself if no one is there to cheerlead for you. Oftentimes when I point out that someone has done something that's very difficult for them to do and not difficult for someone else to do, it feels good to hear that. I look at time management and organization as a talent. And the general population will say, like with musical talent, they'll say, oh, I wish I was musically talented. That person plays so well. They have a natural talent for it. And we just think that's so great they're talented. Well, the general population is talented time management and organizational wise, and we're not. And the general population doesn't applaud us when we work on time. They don't applaud us when we get our desk all organized because that's natural and normal for a lot of people to be able to do that quite easily. Yet it's extremely hard for us to do it, and no one's there to cheer us on and say, "Yay, way to go!" We've got to feel good about it and not minimize the fact that now our desk is like everyone else's. It is awesome. It is awesome compared to what it was before. And it's a great accomplishment. It's not a little thing. It's huge. It's huge. So every little baby step you make toward coping with your ADD, go, yeah, way to go. I'm awesome.
That's great. Just a segue to the workplace, as you talked about people being late to work. I'm going to come back to that question of being late for everything because I think it's something that plagues all of us. But I want to read a question from Mark about the workplace. He says, I'm looking for ideas of managing tasks at work. I can get lost in sticky notes, notepads, to-do lists on my iPhone, ad hoc requests, project work, long-term projects. It's almost like I need a task list for my task list. Any ideas? I think that's really a great articulation of what people with ADD face. We have notes everywhere and lists on our iPhone and lists on our computer and, this and that. And how do you, long-term projects, short-term projects, what do you suggest for managing tasks at work? And the secondary to that, which a number of people have said, is, I start a lot of projects at work, but then I get overwhelmed before I finish them.
Yeah, okay. One way is to just sit down and make that major list, no matter how much you're putting on it. Make the major list. And then on a daily basis, every morning when you get to work, look at the list and pick off what you're going to do in the morning, what you're going to do that day, and sort of aim to have half of it done before lunch to do the other half in the afternoon. I would also take a look at the tasks that you're doing and take a look at when you're most focused in the day. A lot of us taking medication are the most focused in the morning, so choose to do those tasks in the morning that require a lot of focus. Usually they're writing tasks, usually they're thinking writing tasks, they're strategizing tasks, they're planning tasks, and then the things that don't require a lot of focus, like calling back this person and getting in touch with that person, save those for the part of the day that you're least focused. So the tasks themselves are being done at the best time to do them according to when you're focused and when you're not. There's a program called Inspiration.com that many of my clients use for several different reasons. It's a good program for project management. It's like a organizational flowchart. Let's say you have a project called renovating the kitchen. One of the boxes, it's a way to visually mind map the project on the computer. One of the boxes may be plumbing. And so off that box you would have the name of several plumbers you want to contact, and different things about the plumbing you want to remind the plumber about. And then another box will be kitchen cabinets, to have a mind map of the project that you're working on. I already mentioned Evernote. That's a very popular one because it's on the phone, so it's always with you. When you have several different notebooks or several different ways to do to-do lists, simple as that. Get it all on your phone. With most smartphones now, there's an iCloud kind of system where it gets automatically downloaded to your computer. So if your phone goes dead and needs to be recharged, it's on your computer. If your computer crashes, it's on your phone. If you lose your phone or, drop it in a toilet, you've still got that list on your computer. It's a way of backing it up that can be a real lifesaver. The third aspect is not just the technology piece of it or the management piece of it. It's the part about what are you putting on your to-do list. Are we putting things on our to-do list that don't need to be done? I say have a great idea portion of a to-do list, a great idea notebook, a great idea folder, something separate where I say great idea but don't have the time to do it now list. And only use your to-do list for things you're currently engaged in, things you're currently working on, things that are about to come up that you need to start to work on, things that have a deadline, deliverables, concrete deliverables. Much of our to-do list are things that are really unreasonable to put on a to-do list. We just don't have the time to do them. Maybe looking for a particular, you could spend a lot of time online looking for a particular class because we want to learn how to speak French when we don't have the time to speak French. Maybe that's a retirement opportunity project and not something we can fit into our daily lives. Clients with a to-do list of 50 or 100 things on them, I go, whoa, is there, are there things, if you're not wasting time by playing computer games or watching too much TV or have some kind of internet addiction that's run wild, and you are busy all the time doing something and you're not wasting time doing something that's non-productive or non-enjoyable, that just is mindless and wasting time, then then probably you've committed to too many things, and it's time to look at what commitments you can get out of. The hardest question I ever had to answer was at this, CHAD workshop where, this woman stood up. She's a stay-at-home mom who's president of the PTA and involved with her synagogue, and on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And I thought, oh my God, how does she's her problem was she didn't have enough time to do everything, and I can't make more time in the day. But what she can do for herself is reassess her priorities as to what's most important at this particular time in her life. And even though it's important, it may be less important than something else, and you have to cut bait on it. Early in my career, I was asked to be on a board for a women's magazine. I was very honored, and I went to the first meeting, and I realized it was a working board with a lot of work to do. I thought, oh my God, how am I going to, maintain starting my business up and getting going, and this too. And I thought, oh, you can do it, and went to the second meeting and realized that I had committed to doing some things that I didn't get done. And I didn't want that to snowball into a miserable, chaotic state where I was not taking care of my health, staying up till 1 a.m., not running. I love to run. And that, it was important, but it was not realistic to do it. So I called up the woman who asked me to be on the board and said, I have to renege on this. I really don't have the time. And I was expecting her to say, I was expecting her to badmouth me and say, oh, don't ask Sandy to be on any board. She can't do it, And what I got in response was, thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't know how many people want to be on this board, and then they don't do anything, and I end up doing everything. So you might not necessarily get that negative response that you're anticipating to get when you say, I just don't have the time for this right now. Keep me on your list of volunteers. In the future, I'm sure there'll be opportunities to help you out with such and such, but right now I can't. And so reassessing our priorities and what's really important
so
for
Sandy,
our family life.
Saying no is a problem for us ADD?
Absolutely. We know we have the capabilities to do it. We know we're smart enough to do it. We know we'll do it better than someone else that's about to raise their hand and volunteer and make a mess of things. And there are all kinds of reasons why our hand impulsively shoots up in the air when we don't really, when we haven't thought it through. Any kind of thing you're asked to do, to volunteer for, I would say, wait on it, think about it, take a look at what you've currently got going, and make sure that you do have the time to do it without sacrificing your health. I have a very holistic approach to how I work with clients. One of the first things, even if they're about to lose their job, because they don't get to work on time or whatever, I say, what time do you go to bed? What time do you get up? What's your nutrition like? Do you get any exercise at all? Because when you're taking care of yourself, no medication's going to work like it's supposed to work on 4 hours of sleep. When you're taking care of yourself, you will find with exercise, good nutrition, and good sleep hygiene, that some projects that take an hour might only take a half an hour, because you are taking care of yourself and you're better able to focus. You're less stressed out about lack of sleep, or you're not in a state where you haven't nourished your body with something good to eat for lunch.
I think that sounds like really great advice. If only we could all do it.
Right.
Here's a question from Karen that I think many of us will identify with. She says, quote, I am chronically late for almost all appointments or commitments. I leave the house when I'm supposed to be somewhere and rarely leave adequate time to get there. How can I change that? What is that about, Sandy? Why do we do that? I mean, I think it's so common.
We're so concerned about getting things done sometimes that we want to do one more thing before we leave the house.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to go. When it's time to leave the house, it's time to leave the house and not to do one more thing before we leave. Sometimes there are things that we can do to decrease the time it takes to get out of the house. Getting out of the house is a transition. We're stopping our home stuff and we're leaving to do something other, some other activity. It's a transition we make. Transitions are always difficult for people with ADD. We have to get our minds refocused on the new thing and stop what we're focusing on, the old thing. And so transitions are very difficult for us to do. There could be things that you can improve upon to cut down the amount of time transitioning from one activity to another, leaving your home and going to work, leaving your home and going shopping. And one of them is the launch pad. You don't have to spend the 10 minutes looking for your phone. It's in the charger on the launch pad. Where your purse is, it's on the launch pad. So that's the organizational piece of it. If you think you can get out of the house in 20 minutes, and it always takes you 40 minutes to get out of the house, and you've done everything that you can do to simplify the transition, to simplify, stopping one activity and getting on to the next activity, finding your purse, your cell phone, putting your makeup on, whatever it is you need to do to get out the door, then plan on 40 minutes. Try to cut down to 20, but if you're failing every time at trying to get out in 20 minutes instead of 40 minutes, then bite the bullet and plan on 40 minutes to get out of the house. The thing about being late could be some perfectionism coming into play. You're going to a meeting, and so you look through your briefcase to see if you've got everything, and you think, oh, there's one more thing I could put in there. And, oh, I got to get this and put it in there. And you're being too perfectionistic. You've probably got already what you need in your briefcase, your cell phone and your pen and your pad of paper and the few documents. But our ADD mind just expands to a million other possibilities of what to put in that suitcase. All of us who've gone on vacation know that packing is not easy. Packing for vacation is not easy. It's hard keeping it simple because we get online, we look at the temperature, oh my gosh, what do I need to layer? And best case scenario, you can buy a sweatshirt when you get to the beach if it's really dips down and gets real cold. So trying to make it perfect to transition from one activity to another can be detrimental for some of us.
Do you recommend setting multiple alarms to leave the house on time, or are there any practical steps that people can take to actually leave on time?
Yeah, I set an alarm
at the time the event starts.
Yeah. Yeah, I set an alarm. I had to call in at 12:45 today, so I set an alarm at 12:40 to stop what I was doing, to put whatever I needed to put away and off my desk that wouldn't distract me, so I could call in at 12:45. Because I don't want calling in for this, I want to be late. I'm doing time management organization. And the funny thing is I have nightmares about being late. I have nightmares about being disorganized because, that's my normal tendency, to be late and to be disorganized. It's what I help other people with. I have to walk the walk and talk the talk. If there's a consequence, I got one of the questions was interesting, in that the person said she was always to work on time, but she was always late for social events and going places. And, it might be that the consequence of being late to work is much higher than the consequence of, being late to a dinner with someone else. So they went ahead and they ordered their appetizers while, she was on her way. So we have to take a look at consequences and kind of make our own consequences if there aren't any. In other words, my consequence for being late is not doing what I needed to do to get out of the house on time. And the reward is getting out of the house on time for me, not for the person that I'm going to see or the event that I'm going to do, but for me. I'm managing myself in a way that eliminates those consequences of feeling like I can't do it, or that it's I'm in a constant state of chaos because I'm late. It's those internal rewards. It's feeling good about ourselves, and so think of the time that you managed to get out the door and got there on time. What was it you did, and how did you do it? Did you say, "Oh, my hair looks good enough, I'm not going to brush it one more time"? Well, there you go. That's a strategy to use right there. Our hair isn't going to look perfect all the time. Was it that you, just grabbed the jacket and then got outside and realized, this is too heavy of a jacket, but continued to go to the appointment anyways with a heavy jacket instead of the light jacket? Was it that you looked at the clock and hit the off button on your computer and said, "I'll do the rest of the emails later. I don't want to be late"? What's that internal talk that you're telling yourself? And, once again, most importantly is giving yourself that internal talk of, yes, I left the house when I said I was going to. And that's big for me. That's huge. This is what I need. This is what I want. And this is what I'm going to do. Instead of the negative voice that creeps in is like, "Oh, I'm always late. They'll understand," or "It's no big deal," or "I'm never going to do this." This is my ADD. We have ADD. It doesn't go away. Yet we have to congratulate ourselves when we cope with it and we do stuff despite. I still occasionally lose my keys and still occasionally lose a credit card and still, and that's normal. That happens. But I'm not going to, let it thwart my efforts of changing the behavior of, okay, so where's my credit card? I'm not going to, the grocery store is a perfect example. We check out our stuff at the grocery store, and the person behind us is tapping their foot because we're taking too long. Well, I'm sorry. I am putting my credit card back in the slot where it belongs, so I know where it is. I'm not going to just grab the credit card and the receipt and shove it in my pocket, because then I'll go to look at my wallet and it's not going to be there. And if I've changed codes, then I don't know which code it's in. It is slowing down. Oftentimes, we can perform the best and get the most done when we slow down. And we're hot-wired to move faster, and that's when we, when we're stressed out and we move faster and we're being impatient with ourselves, is when we, lose the credit card or drop the key and don't realize we've got the key.
That makes sense. We are running. I think we could talk about this forever. We have maybe 7 more minutes. There's a couple of themes here in the questions that I'm seeing, and one that I wanted to present to you, and that is people who are living with family members who are messy or disorganized. So here's Sarah, who says, "I have a messy partner. His messiness, disorganized, exacerbates my ADHD. Not only do I feel like I'm trying to manage and organize my life, but his also. How do I get my partner to be more supportive?" And similarly, a number of people have asked about children who are disorganized, messy, and specific concerns about how to get them help or to get their habits changed before they go off to college. Do you have any thoughts on people with ADHD who live with other people with ADHD?
Yeah. It's time for a little tete-a-tete, a little meeting, get together and define boundaries around mess. You both have to live in the same space. And so some of those boundaries might be the coffee table in the living room. That's that's off limits for leaving clutter there. The only thing that goes on it is the remote control and a couple magazines, and that's it. Don't leave your stuff there. That's a clear space. That's a shared space. That's your mess doesn't go there. And if it does get left there, some of my clients will have like a basket in each room. If I find your stuff on that clear area, I pick it up, I put it in the basket, and later he says, "Oh, where's that XYZ? I know I had it here someplace." Say, look in the basket. If you probably left it on the coffee table, look in the basket. And when the basket gets full, it's time for that person to put their stuff away and put it back where it belongs if it starts overflowing. Other clear areas or shared areas could be the kitchen island, the kitchen counters, the dining room table. Woo, that's a big one. Everybody puts stuff on the dining room table, and you might want the dining room table to eat on. You might want the clear area, that shared space, and your stuff doesn't go there. If it's a huge problem, you probably want someone to come in and help you say, okay, the whole place is cluttered. What are some things we need to do in this household to be more organized? Usually that is a separate office space if you're in separate study spaces for the kids. If the kids do study at the kitchen table or the dining room table while you're cooking dinner for the kids, it's to be understood that the stuff goes back in their book bags or back in their, study cubicles or study space in their bedroom for their books or bookshelves. Clutter, it almost always, again, starts with, ooh, it's too much. It's too much. So getting the other person committed to purging and giving away and tearing down is sometimes hard to do. I'm working with a woman right now whose husband, he's a real pack rat, and it's okay to be a pack rat with your dresser, your closet, your space, but when it creeps out into general areas that are used by other people, you got to say it's a no-no and get it back into their area. And if they don't have a desk, then where, structurally and organizationally, where can you carve out a place? Do we need to get rid of a piece of furniture here or there to put a little desk in for you, for your stuff, so your stuff has a home?
So in terms of a partner or a child, it's setting boundaries and having a strategy for keeping some areas off limits for clutter, essentially. Yeah.
And kids, if they're kids, and clutter has been pervasive in the home, it might be good to have Grandma or Aunt Sally or somebody come in and help do their room with them. There's skills that need to be taught. I actually worked with a woman once who, I work out of my home, and so clients come here, and she says, "Do you mind if we go in the kitchen and I look in your kitchen cupboards?" And I said, "Sure, let's go in the kitchen and look in the kitchen cupboards." And she asked that because, her dad, she grew up with her dad, and his dad was a very busy man who didn't cook at all and use the kitchen at all. And so the cupboards in their home were like just storage closets for any and everything. There was no organization in the kitchen at all because they always ate takeout or went out to eat. Rarely did they scramble an egg or make a pancake or a sandwich or something like that. And so I showed her. I said, okay, under the sink is typically where we put cleaning products, and the pots and the pans go on lower shelves because they're heavy, and you don't want to pull a pot off a top shelf, a heavy pot, and have it clunk you on the head. Basic things like that. And with children, it's basically, okay, here's your room. This is your dresser. This drawer is your underwear drawer, and you can get a little label maker and put underwear on it. On one drawer, long sleeve tops, short sleeve tops, pants, pajamas, and label the drawers so that when the laundry's done and they have their clothes to put back or put away, they know which drawer to put them in. It is about categorizing and sorting, and this goes here and that goes there, and here's your laundry basket because you don't want to get your clean clothes mixed up with your dirty clothes, which is another ADD nightmare. Laundry is one of those things that can really quite troublesome when it gets to the point where you're not quite sure which is dirty and which is clean. Which
Right.
many of us have gotten to that point, and when we get to that point, it is putting on the brakes and doing something about
labeling seems like a great idea. We are pretty much out of time. I'm going to give you two quick last questions. One has been raised by 5 or 6 people who mentioned that they have recently moved and they find themselves incapable of fully unpacking. So there are boxes in the garage in some of the rooms, and they just get the task completely done of unpacking and moving in seems overwhelming. And then the last one is also related to motivation. Numerous people have said, lots of these ideas are great, but how do I make myself do them? And how do we deal with the sort of sensory overload and the kind of, feeling of helplessness that we face when we see before us all that has to be done, what feels overwhelming. So those would be my last 2 questions.
Okay.
Minor
Well,
one.
let's start with the moving one. I wish I'd worked with this person before they moved, because moving is a great opportunity to get rid of the stuff that you need to get rid of. It's a good opportunity to pare down and categorize and sort while you're putting it into the boxes. I've been brought in on situations where people have just moved, and one box would have like sports equipment, dishes, and computer stuff in. And I would say best case in moving, you'd want to put all your computer stuff in one box and all your sports stuff in another box, and all your, the old categorizing and sorting. If there are lots of things that are still unpacked, chances are there a lot of that stuff is not needed because you're not using it. It's unpacked, or you went ahead and bought a new rice cooker or whatever it is that you needed because you didn't know what box it was in. Realize that if you didn't put enough time aside to move in completely and get the job done before you go back to work, you're now at work and you're still not unpacked and, things are still busy. Pick one project every Saturday morning to go through. Setting definable criteria for any project, whether it be unpacking or moving or whatnot, is important. In other words, one box every week I'm going to deal with. Because when we look at the 20 boxes in the garage and the 5 in the attic and the 4 more stashed over in the corner, we're on overwhelm. And whenever we're on overwhelm, our body just naturally shuts down. We're going to go see a movie. We're not going to deal with that stress. So to make it less stressful so we can deal with it, it's one box at a time. Right. And granted, it may take a long time to get through all the rest of the boxes, but you'll get through them if it's one box at a time.
Sandy, I think you answered my second question with that as well, because that's also a response to the question of how does one avoid being overwhelmed completely. You're saying you break into small parts and set a task at a certain frequency and knock it off. Well, I can't thank you enough for all of your help. This really was great. There's tons of questions here, but I think you hit the high points of many people's questions. So thanks, Sandy. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
For more Attitude Podcast and information on living well with attention deficit, visit AttitudeMag.com. That's Additudemag.com.